But now I want to talk about some of the pronatalist propaganda in it as well.
And I would say it's almost to the point where it takes you out of the plot as a viewer.
There's one scene where the old lady goes to an old store that she used to frequent in the train station, and the train station's completely deserted, and the store owner marked that they're probably going to be going out of business soon, but what can you do? This is just the way it is with changing demographics. And the old person turns around and gets one of those like black miasma, like anger things around them, and she goes, "But we need to resist this. Why are we not even fighting?" The show is meant to encourage you to not like normal anime thirst after young women, but make you thirst after a long and happy relationship. That is what the whole show is. It's a thirst trap for getting married and having a long, happy relationship and being intergenerationally invested in your family.
Would you like to know more?
Hello, Simone. I am excited to be here with you today, and we are going to be doing something we haven't done in a while on this podcast, which is discuss anime.
Yes.
Because I am a big anime fan, and you are a medium anime fan, but you're very good to lean into the culture and everything like that. Like you used to dress up for conventions and everything.
I was
right?
president and founder of my high school's anime club. I've been to numerous anime conventions across multiple countries. I love anime.
Wait,
I
what
just don't
other
watch it
country
because I don't have
anime?
time. Huh?
What other country other than the US?
The UK. I went to an anime convention in the UK. It was fantastic.
Where you were at Cambridge?
No, actually, I was randomly traveling in the UK and I had a day free and there was an anime convention and I'm like, screw it. I'm obviously not going to go to the British Museum. I'm going to go to an anime convention because that's how people spend their time.
So this last year we were in the UK for ARC, which is like a conservative convention. And you were wearing one of your traditional outfits, which you often wear similar to this, and a bunch of anime goers, because there was an anime convention at the same time.
I was actually wearing my fascist outfit, not this one.
Oh, yeah, with the more fascist
They
looking
still
one.
thought I was cosplaying though.
They thought you were cosplaying. They're like, oh, who are you cosplaying now?
Like that.
It's so great. But we are going to be talking about in this episode anime that I think is really interesting for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
So I'll break down the reasons why it's interesting to me. One is the pronatalist propaganda, which is put throughout the anime and is very heavy-handed and I think very effective because it paints the reality of Japan as it is today, or rural Japan, which is depopulating right now, in this very stark term. So we'll get to that. Yeah. Two, it is an anime that is incredibly simplistic in terms of the characters it presents and the roles it gives them, yet despite being and the plot structure more broadly.
It's sort of a slice of lifestyle anime. Very chill,
yeah, very you could say it's very cookie cutter in many respects, and yet I think it is incredibly effective as a piece of art, which is really worth highlighting about this show. As to why it's effective as a piece of art, I'll just quickly go into this because I think that this is useful to talk about and it can bring us into the plot of the show really quickly. Yeah. Despite being very generic in almost everything it lays out, and I'm like, okay, if I'm judging art by art's quality, right? I'm judging it on three metrics, okay? The first metric, is it able to invoke the emotional states that it is attempting to invoke in me?
Check.
Art can be used to invoke emotional states. This anime does that spectacularly well. Two, and this is a personal preference thing, are those emotional states positive?
Yeah.
I do not want to watch shows that just make me cringe or make me sad, or I find that
just incredibly dark. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that unpleasant in a show. And this is
Code Geass. I would not say that make me feel good.
What show?
Code Geass.
Code Geass? Oh no, I really like all the strategy in Code Geass. And
so you found it intellectually stimulating enough where all the dark sadness didn't get to you.
Yeah, no, it's a power fantasy, and it's my kind of power fantasy because I identify with Luke so much. Come on,
Rollo.
Justice for Rollo. Is that
hashtag justice for Rollo.
Anyway, we have another episode where we talk about Code Geass that people can go check out if they want. But anyway, it very effectively makes me feel an emotional set. And you watch some of it too. You'd agree that conveyal of emotional set.
Yeah. Nailed it.
And it's just very wholesome. It does a very good job of conveying what a good marriage is, what it feels like to be in a good marriage, why you would want that from an emotional perspective. But I also think the feeling of real love, it conveys very well. As
So you're gonna,
opposed to
after this huge buildup, are you gonna name the anime?
yes, I'm going to name the anime and describe the plot.
Okay.
Okay. So the name of the anime is Grandpa and Grandma Turn Young Again.
Sounds
First of
like
all, I
it
love
sounds like a kid book title, right?
it does.
Grandpa
The
and Grandma
cover
Turn
looks
Young
like a
Again.
kid's book as well. But the anime is incredibly this new way of titling anime titles, where it's like a long title and it's just descriptive of the plot of
The
the
long tail
show.
title. Yeah.
It's become this recent thing in anime in like the past 2 to 3
I
years.
think it makes sense because when you do internet searches for streaming shows, you're often just searching by what you know of the plot, like what you've seen in AMVs, what you've heard from people talking online. It's, oh, what's that anime where the grandpa and grandpa turn young again? And it
Yeah,
actually comes.
what's that anime where the character is a main character and overconfident? That's like the way anime is named these days. But anyway,
Yeah, what about that anime where they slay demons?
no, that's not as good because Demon Slayer actually sounds like it. But Grandma and Grandpa Turn Young Again. So the show is about an old loving couple in Japan that eat a magical apple and they gain the ability to transform into their younger selves whenever they go to sleep. So basically, they turn young again. And actually, the final thing that a show needs to do to be good art is it needs to make me think. It needs to make me have new ideas that I've never had before.
Yes.
This show is remarkably effective at that.
Yeah. In other words, it needs to change you. You need to come out from watching that show a different person fundamentally than who you were coming into it. And that is valuable art for sure.
Yeah. And I would argue that anybody who watches this show, and it's an only one season show, and I don't think I haven't watched the last episode yet. I am on the last episode right now, but it's pretty heavily foreshadowed that the couple's going to die in the last episode. So it's not like you're going to get another season.
The last episode, by the way, I've since watched it, is incredibly strong.
It's a short, tight, really high quality show that's going to make you have new ideas. But the thing is how does it get people to have new ideas? How does it push a pronatalist agenda? And how does it push like positive themes about relationships and stuff? So the first thing that it does, just over and over throughout the show, is it's made me realize by having the couple be young, attractive, like anime protagonists looking, but then doing things that you see old people do all the time.
Yes.
It humanizes those actions. And I realized that I hadn't considered just how kind most old people are because I saw them as like this different class of human that has different expectations around them.
Yeah, different standards. But also the brilliant thing is simultaneously they are modeling and creating an attractive aspirational model for a functional, happy relationship, which is beautiful because that's a big problem these days. People don't have a good model for what a healthy marriage looks like. And so it's brilliant to take an old person relationship and subvert it into a young person, like hot young person relationship.
And it does a great job of elevating the values of earlier generations by making them young and hot and in a modern context.
Yes.
But still living with those older values.
Having made sacrifices, having lived with austerity, having, built.
And we should talk about some of the austerity that's constantly. So I'll go over a quote from the show right here to give you an idea of the type of values that they teach. But there's a line here where they go, extravagance is the enemy. Wanting things is wrong. The mentality of restraint that was drummed into us during the Showan era. And it also shows a lot because there's occasional flashbacks to their early relationship, what it was like dating during World War II and the environment that created for them. But it also recontextualizes the point of marriage. Here's like an action that was recontextualized for me in the show. Is in the show, they're constantly trying to hook up their grandkids with other kids so that they can have great grandkids, right? That's the goal, right? And it is, as a young person, when you see this action, it feels like somebody is being intrusive into your life, right? That is the way that people contextualize parents hooking them up and stuff like that.
It's seen negatively these days, like meddling.
Yeah, and in the show, you realize, oh God, it's not meddling at all. It's that families are intergenerational units, and this is the way that old people relate to new relationships. And
Mhm.
it's something I often think about myself. What kind of people are my kids going to date? What kind of people are my kids going to marry? How can I help them
Yeah,
with that?
honestly, most of the friendships that we establish now are established in an effort to build a friendship and dating and professional network for our children.
Yeah.
Literally.
And it made me recontextualize that, oh, they're not doing that to meddle. They're doing that because they want to help.
And it
Um,
cannot be overstated just how much of a role parents and extended family used to play in matchmaking, and how
Mhm.
much of this absence of this matchmaking contributes to current relationship market failures, because no one really talked about that role. And even back in the past, I think younger people used to complain about it or whinge about it, when really it played an invaluable role, and parents put a ton of effort into this. And people who watch Bridgerton can totally see this. While Bridgerton is not very accurate in its costuming or plot or anything like that, it is still pretty accurate in the involvement of parents in the matchmaking of their children, and the huge amount of effort that they put historically into finding good matches for their kids.
Yeah, and it also takes a pretty hard anti-life extensionist stance, which I find very interesting and obviously aligns with our value set.
Yeah.
There's a few very sweet scenes around that. For example, in one scene, and this also shows like the way that it gives you better models for relating to your parents and other people in your life.
Yeah.
So there's one scene where the son, who has become a doctor so that he could care for his elderly mom, because she had a chronic disease, and that's what motivated him to become a doctor. And she's just proud that he's a doctor. Like, she's just excited that he's a doctor, and
So
he
proud.
feels like he's been a failure because he hasn't been able to cure her disease. And it shows this misaligned expectation that you can sometimes get, which is, what does the mom want from her son? It's to be successful and to have a family of his own. But what does he want for her? He wants to cure her, right?
Yeah.
And he is unaware that he has already fulfilled all of the expectations she may have had of him, and done the kindest thing he can for her through achieving his own success and stability.
Right.
He doesn't need to solve her problems to have served what she wants of him.
Yeah.
And there's also a great scene there that you'll probably tear up when you see it, where the father turns old again, because they don't realize that they can control this early on, but she's still in her young body, and the doctor son is crying over this because he's okay, so this is a temporary thing, and now she's going to turn old again and she's going to die. And in the other room, she is also crying and very distraught, but it is because she now believes that she's going to outlive her husband and maybe even outlive her own children. And I just really, and I think that this shows this contrasting, that he sees the horror as her dying, and yet she is totally okay with dying. That is something that is made clear throughout the show. Like, the couple,
death is not a failure scenario once you have kids.
a great life. There are a few times, and there's another scenario where she begins to become worried that they might live forever, and she is consoled when the husband points out that no, it's a metaphor in the show, hourglass. It doesn't matter, but it's seen that the sand's coming out of the hourglass, and eventually they are going to die, and that they only have maybe a year or two of this. So there's that one, and then there's the other part of the thing there where he finds out, this is after the part where you were watching, that she only has a couple days left to live, but he has over a year left to live. And so he secretly, without her knowing, of course, makes a deal with a shrine.
A spirit? At their local jinja or something?
To trade his lifespan so that they can die at the same time.
I would so do that in a hot second. If only we could die at the same time.
Yeah, no, I feel so much better if I could do that. Like, that to me, like, when that happens in the show, he keeps it secret from her because he doesn't want her to know about this. But like, you
would tell me and I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, me as a person watching this, you would understand and I would understand. I would want, if I knew I could just trade a portion of my life to extend your life, and then we both die at the exact same time. That's like a win across the board.
As long as that's happening after our kids are sorted.
Yeah, no, that would be the one.
We both agree that if it comes down to both of us would die before we could get our kids in order, then we just have one of us survive long enough to get them in order.
I was actually really surprised by her lucidity on this point. And so I went to ask her, to elaborate on her position on this later. And she was just like, knowing both of us the way she does, that both of our quality of life would be so low without the other one, that it would only make sense for one of us to trade part of our lifespan for the other person. And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that shows real, empathy and understanding of my perspective. And it really made me appreciate her.
Yeah, but I thought that was really interesting in terms of contextualization, because usually when people do this life exchange trope in a show, you feel like they are giving up something.
Oh yeah, like it's so tragic, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
When I saw it in this show, it's not played like that. It's played as, obviously this is what you would do. Like, why would you do anything other than this? This is just such the obvious choice when you are in a happy relationship and you like being with someone. So it does a very good job at and showing the purpose of these people's lives is their family, is the intergenerational part.
Yeah.
But now I want to talk about some of the pronatalist propaganda in it as well.
And I would say it's almost to the point where it takes you out of the plot as a viewer. You're like, oh, wait, okay, we've got to the point where there's propaganda.
I liked it because it was a major theme of the show. And it was a theme of the show that the show is meant to encourage you to, not like normal anime, thirst after young women, but make you thirst after a long and happy relationship. That is what the whole show is. It's a thirst trap for getting married and having a long, happy relationship and being intergenerationally invested in your family. But to give you an idea of like how dystopian it's framed as, so two of the young people in the show who end up getting together and deciding to take over the family businesses, the young girl, actually from the beginning, Simone, she ends up deciding that she wants to take over the family's apple orchard. And she is obviously slated to, you can see they like each other, become married and have kids with a young boy whose family also has an apple orchard, not an apple orchard, a different type of farm in the area. And the show paints this as this enormous sacrifice that these kids are doing this for their families.
Yeah.
Because all of the old people just expected to shut down all the farms. That is the expectation in these communities these days. And when the two young people were talking, because they plant a tree together and they go, can I come back to this in 50 years? And she's, of course. And then they're imagining what that area of the country is going to be like in 50 years. And they comment that they might be the only people left living in the area. And it's made very clear in the show that they probably will be the only people left in the area. There is one of the first episodes is on a sporting competition, and the conflict was
between two little villages in the countryside.
Yeah, in between two little villages in the countryside, is their village no longer has any young men to attend. And the other village has this, like, seen as this super advantage, like the mean kids trope they play it as, except nobody's mean in this show. The advantage they have is two young brothers. And none of the other villages have that.
Yeah.
And so
we have children, we have youth.
Yeah, we have youth. And it's one of those brothers who ends up dating the girl. So it's one of these, everyone's nice in this, everyone's sweet, everyone gets happy endings in this. You really don't need to worry about any negative emotions from this show. But that's like what they're showing, is they're imagining a completely depopulated region. Whenever there's a side plot, like the son's company is failing and doing layoffs, and they say they're failing because of changing demographics and because the people are disappearing. There's one scene where, like, this is one where, like, really took me out of it for a second, where the old lady goes to an old store that she used to frequent in the train station, and the train station's completely deserted, and the store owner marked that they're probably going to be going out of business soon, but what can you do? This is just the way it is with changing demographics. And the old person turns around and gets one of those, like, black miasma, like, anger things around them, and she goes, but we need to resist this. Why are we not even fighting? And it's like a sign of, and it's what this show is, which is to look starkly at the reality of demographic collapse and then say, but you can fight this. And you fight this with love and happiness and wholesomeness, and stop with the degeneracy, okay? Just be happy and wholesome, and understand that happy and wholesomeness includes degeneracy sometimes, but that's not like a focus of the show, right?
Here I need to note that in the first episode of the show, there are 2 or 3 jokes that are rather lewd about the grandchildren thinking that the grandparents' younger forms are attractive. This is not a theme that goes throughout the show. It's just in the first episode. And I guess they did it just to try to catch some horny young people who are into more normal anime comedy in an attempt to trick them into watching a wholesome show.
Which I really like as well. So, yeah, did you have thoughts on the show that you wanted to elevate?
I'm just thrilled that old people are getting some airtime. I feel like old people don't get enough of it. And it's nice also that Japan is, I think, trying to humanize this population that is going to be in a very delicate and precarious situation. And it's an element of the pronatalist conversation and demographic collapse conversation that actually isn't being had as much. Originally, when people talked about demographic collapse, they talked about who's going to take care of the old people. And I haven't really heard that in any of the current discussions. It's more what are people of childbearing age going to be doing about this, instead of what about people who are retired and who need help and who need attention and love from an increasingly dwindling younger person population. And so I appreciate the extent to which this also elevates the experiences and worth and humanity of people who are more advanced in years, as it were.
I think more than older people, it does a very good job of showcasing why a good marriage is desirable. And I think that if you ever struggled, like, why would I get married? Why would I compromise for somebody else? In this show, both of the people heavily compromise for each other.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually made it pretty clear that when they got married, they were both very into each other, but also had many reservations about the marriage. In one of the flashbacks, she's asking, could this farm boy really melt my heart? And then in the present time, she's, oh yes, he completely melted it, or completely, or something like that. She says in response to what's happening in the flashback. But it's made clear that wasn't something that happened like on their marriage day or something like that. It was something that happened after a lifetime of dedication to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And also what the point is in marriage, and I think that this is one of the things why some people can't have good marriages when they've been too steeped in the urban monoculture, is a line from the show where she's younger and she's, before they get married, she goes, I bring you so many unhappinesses, it causes you so many problems to be with me. And he goes, just making you happy, just doing things that make you happy brings me so much happiness that all of the other emotions that I'm being barraged with become meaningless in the face of that. And I think that's the way most happy married couples feel about the way they interact with each other.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious to see, one, I feel like there might be some legislation in Japan that is encouraging a certain amount of pronatalist propaganda or demographic collapse propaganda more widely, because this feels
You think it seems subsidized? I think it's doing well. Other people I know have said that this is an amazing show. I think
it is an amazing show. I just feel like this is not the only anime that's throwing in, it's spreading it on thick, as it were. And I just wonder if, and I think this is one of the most effective forms of intervention that a government can support. So that's another reason why I'm hoping Japan's doing it, because all the subsidies, all this, like the payouts and in some cases, nations curtailing reproductive rights, I don't think those are effective interventions. I do think that shows like this, and I would love to see more of that. I'd love to see it in the United States. I'd love to see more great anime coming out that has lots of, Spy Family is fantastic. You already talked about, what's that other one that's super pronatalist?
Darling with Franks?
Yes, Franks.
Yeah, Franks is heavy pronatalist propaganda. Gurren Lagann, though, even in the older days. Another thing I've noticed in anime, and I was actually telling her this, is there's a lot more kids in anime than I remember historically. People are put in dad roles. For example, I was just watching Remonster, which is not a show where I'd expect him to take on this dad role, and yet he does, and he has little kids, and it's seen as his dad role is like this really elevated thing for him. And something that all men should desire. And 3 kids he has. So also above repopulation rate. And I think It might be government programs that are causing this, and I'll do some research before this goes live and add if I'm able to find any of these.
After some research, it seems pretty clear that the Japanese government did not sponsor this and has not sponsored any of the recent more pronatalist anime. This seems to be a totally grassroots movement, and it makes sense. I will say that they have sponsored some anime before, but it's mostly been for military purposes, to try to get people to sign up for the military or to try to make them look good to other countries. There is no evidence that they've supported any pronatalist anime. And given that they do make it public when they are sponsoring anime for military purposes, there's no reason they would keep it quiet if they were doing it for pronatalist purposes, which is even less controversial.
But I suspect it's more just that it's gotten to the point where your average Japanese person realizes that this has become an existential threat to their culture and way of life, and that it's to everyone, whatever your job is, to be fighting this from the position that you have. In the same way that like progressives try to insert the quote unquote message into everything. They're in a society where that message hasn't caused as much damage yet. And so they're still sane to an extent, able to be like, hey, fertility rate is an issue. And like, why aren't we even fighting? I love that sentiment.
It's a good line.
Why aren't we even fighting? This was all about intergenerationally passing on this responsibility. And that's something that's also talked a lot about in the show, is the idea of the sort of intergenerational duty we have to those who came before us and sacrificed for the things we have and the life we've been able to have. Because I think that that's often a really easy thing to forget, and the show really brings it home for me. Yeah.
So I watch a lot of like fundy snark videos and stuff like that where progressive women are sneering at conservative or really just any form of diverse lifestyle. And I love that there's like, sorry, side note here, the progressive has like diverse TM, which includes like 3 different pre-approved lifestyles, like gay, polyamorous, or living alone with cats. But any actually religiously diverse lifestyle is seen as like axiomatically bad. But anyway, one of the things that they always complain about is this idea that you would have any sort of duty to sacrifice for your ancestors or your culture or your family. And, you know, you can go watch our review of Starship Troopers to get an idea of what I mean by that. You know, you have this idea where presumably it's perfect from a progressive perspective. You know, you have total equality, total gender equality, everyone uses the same restroom, but they view it as an inhumanly evil and fascist society just because it's a society that expects some sacrifices to achieve, not even of everyone, not even forced of everyone, but just to be able to exercise political power and violence over other people, because political power is always violence. And they're just like, no, we can't have that. We need a world where nobody has any responsibilities expected of them. That is the ultimate thing they're fighting for. So, you know, to see this value system turned on its head and somebody saying, well, actually, no, you do owe something to the people who have made sacrifices so that you can exist, which are your ancestors and which are your cultural group. And that's a sentiment I wholeheartedly agree with, and I am quite excited for this really toxic view that you owe nothing to anyone dying out, which it is, fortunately, due to fertility rates.
And I also would say another thing the show does really well, and it's able to do this because it has these older characters, is show that you can have an evolving culture that is still true to the spirit of the cultures that came before it. So as much as there's this push in the anime for pushing society, for keeping connection to the ancestral traditions and everything like that, there's also a big push for things like gender equality throughout it, and that like we do need to evolve the way that we're interacting with each other in some ways, and that's seen as like a great thing in the couple. And for example, in one arc, the woman loses her memory, and so she's around the husband and gets to basically judge him from the perspective of her before she met him, and she notices that he's doing all sorts of chores that she thought of as women's chores, like cleaning the dishes and stuff like that, and doing them without expectation of her wanting something from him. And she's like, oh, this is great that he's doing this. Also in that arc, I do think they do a very good job of showing the type of love that you build in a marriage doesn't feel like
passionate romantic love, as is typically depicted among young couples.
Yeah, she's trying to wait for this feeling of a young person being around her partner, and she doesn't realize the way that she feels for him until he's gone for a day. And that's when she was like, I don't love him yet, and I don't have any attraction to him, but I just feel incredibly anxious when he's not around, like not really complete when he's not around. And I think that people who have been married and have good marriages absolutely know this feeling of being away from your partner feels really off. Final thoughts here, Simone?
Recommend the anime. Love a good, wholesome slice of life anime. And I'm glad that you, who is not typically a slice of life kind of guy on the anime front, found one you like.
Yeah, no, I definitely think this is going to be in my top probably 4 or 5 anime I've ever seen in terms of quality.
Okay, number 1 is Food Wars. Number 2, no, okay, number 1 is Gurren Lagann. Number 2 is Food Wars.
No, Food Wars is actually above Gurren Lagann for me in terms of entertainment value.
It's really good. Yeah,
so
okay.
yeah, probably Food Wars, Gurren Lagann,
Code Geass, and then this one.
Actually, yeah, no, it might be this one next. Then Code Geass and Therma Roma, the original.
Original. Yeah, not the new nonsense.
God, I'm trying to think if there are some other that I've just like absolutely loved and I'm forgetting here. I'm sure.
The one in my top 5 here that I absolutely forgot here that would easily replace Therme Rome is B Gata H Kia.
Goblin Slayer.
Oh yeah, Goblin Slayer. Goblin Slayer I'd slot above this one. I think Goblin Slayer is slightly better than this.
Too dark for me. Too dark. I don't see. Again, I don't know how you could handle that. I couldn't. There was too much infanticide and.
That's what the first episode is known for people going into it. It is gritty.
They come in strong. They come in just right.
So it was Goblin Slayer. The thing that really does for me is I think it models very good cultural values.
Yeah.
And
it models objective function extremely well.
Yeah, it models the concept of objective function, which the Pragmatist Guide to Life is all about, the first book we wrote. So I really like it from that perspective. And it is moderately. Food Wars like earns its top spot just entirely for entertainment purposes.
Oh my God,
but I also think that the main character, it models relationships really well. I think Food Wars does that. Like,
it models tenacity. It models vitalism extremely.
Vitalism, yes, a very good modeling of vitalism. And
Plus, you learn a lot about food science, food culture, and food history.
Yeah,
it's educational.
Educational.
You gotta watch it. For literacy.
So if you like some of these other shows that I've been listing and I'm like, this show is among them in terms of quality, definitely go check it out. It is top tier.
I love you, Malcolm. You're
such
a nerd.
Too, Simone. And I see you like in the show, I just see our relationship modeled so well. And it does such a good job, even as somebody who's in a happy marriage, reminding me what I have in terms of a relationship with you, getting me think about if this was me having turned young as an 80-year-old with you, what would I be doing with our life today if I transformed into a young person with kids again, taking them out on the river, which I'll do again this weekend. That's one thing I'd probably be doing, making sure we pick berries together, making sure I plant some trees. So yeah, there's a lot of things I do. And I
also, though, we're going to if we're lucky enough to live to an old age, we're going to make a pretty cute old couple. Let's not die too early.
Yeah. So what I guess is the feeling that the show gives me is the same feeling that you give me. And it's something that these ultra progressives, I think, just totally lack in their life, because even when they're married, they don't really live as a unit in the way that you should when you're like in a happy marriage. They live as
atomized roommates.
Yeah, the atomized roommates who exist to be each other's friend who they have sex with, instead of be a huge chunk of their identity, a half of their identity in terms of how they relate to reality. And because of that, they're never going to experience, there's so much that they're missing. And this show serves you on a platter, I think, so what they are missing. What did you get, a blowout?
Yeah.
All right. In between episodes, I'll let you take her to get changed, okay?
And thanks, Malcolm.
You're amazing.
Aww. Poor Indy. I love you, Malcolm.
Love you too.
I will make a link for the Scott Alexander one, but I gotta handle this first.
Go for it.
Okay.
One final note I'd make about the show here that I thought was actually pretty interesting is it is shown that this phenomenon is not unique to them, that occasionally in this world they live in, golden apples present themselves to old couples shortly before they die. that have lived long, happy, and healthy marriages dedicated to their partner and their community and their descendants. And it's a really sweet concept. It'd be quite cool if that was real.
翔太君、あとは任せたぞ。
じゃあ何かあったらよ。やってみる？
そうだね。なあ、ばあさま。
ん？
少し歩かんか。ばあさまには劣るがの。
またじいさま。
で、休憩するか。
んだな。くらいいい天気だの。
んだな。さま。しおり、さすがわしらの孫。
で成績もうなぎの。
してるそうでな。その話題でばあさま。玄関に無言で置いていくの。吉明も就職先が見つかったら明日のことなどわからん。
ていくか想像もつかん。角助さんたちとたくさん練習したからきっと南町が勝つ。
明美たちが来てばあさま、もし願い事が一つ叶うとしたら。
願い事ならもう叶っとるよ。
ばあさま、明日は何を。
もうそんなところで寝たら風邪ひいちゃうよ、二人と。
おーい、ばあさん。
どうしたじいさん。
確かこれ、わしらが学生の時に名談をする神棚に飾る。
食べてみよう。
Oh, I'm so excited for today. I like these talks.
You are amazing. I love them too. So I will get started.
Did you listen to that podcast, by the way, where Jenny
I
Kleeman
listened
was interviewed?
to most of it. I stopped listening to the part where she had gotten to like the smack, just because I had to run and do the side scrollers episode. Did it get bad after that? It sounded like she was beginning to get pretty critical.
She was critical, and she defended her points. But it was more
This
just
is a piece of media made about us that we're referring to, that they were doing an interview. Would you know what podcast it was on?
Yes, I can tell you.
Probably in one of my tabs right now, because
I'd written it down. It was on the Front Burner podcast where they interviewed Jenny. I think what really came out was just like a difference in culture for the most part. Like she came to our house and the house was cold and Torsten was on his own upstairs for a long time. And you practiced corporal punishment in front of her. And she asked you some questions about the population size of pronatalists. And then she just came to this conclusion that, like, one, we don't love our kids. And two, we say we're data driven, but we're not actually doing data-driven stuff.
it's because all of the ways that she would have us change the way we're parenting our kids would be incredibly high. Like you've got to be around your kid 24/7. It's like you can't have a lot of kids.
Also, Torsten wouldn't our autistic children really want alone time, and we give it to them when they want it, and we check in on them quite frequently, but that doesn't change the fact that sometimes they get overstimulated and they just want to be by themselves, especially when we have visitors. Yeah.
But I think it just showed, so there was that, oh my God, they sometimes have screens, and then the corporal punishment, both of which were just things that become a norm whenever you get a family above a certain size.
Also, though, I think she's mostly playing up the sensationalized element of it. The more monstrous we look, the better the story is. So using terms like they had tied screens around their children's necks. One, I don't even know if those straps broke off right away.
I think one of the kids actually had a strap that day.
One of them must have. She wouldn't have made it up. But like it there's a big difference between a kid carrying a satchel of an iPad with a strap that's
Yeah, I
used
should
for
probably see if I can find. There's none down here. Well, we'll
there's
show
none
them
down
in the
there
description.
versus having a parent that tied it to their neck. It sounds like those horse feed bags.
I'm actually more offended, and this is the core, to me, offense of the article and lie of the article, is they are not iPads. I would never get my kid an iPad. That is just way too expensive. They
How
are
dare you?
they are $100
Very
mini
inexpensive
tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're Samsung Galaxy Tabs, the A1 variety, which is their very cheap variety that you can get for $120, I think.
Yes.
And then if you get them used, you can get them under $100. And then there's these $10 like large rubber casings you can get for them that we use for our kids.
Yeah, that includes straps so you can hang them from the back of an airplane seat or something.
But I'm always fascinated when people are publicly talking about us like this, like just genuinely interested in how much of weirdos we are. Anyway,
let's do it.
I'm ready to get started. All right.